Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale. Swayam Rupagada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam. Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam. Sahagana Raghunathan Mitantang Sajivam. Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Govinda Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Rayet Nasta Presho Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavad Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. So today is Thursday, December, what is it, 20th? Say the 20th or 19th?
Today is the 19th.
December 19th, 2024. Did I get that right? Soon to be 2024. We're reading from Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 25, Description of the Characteristics of King Paranjana. Text number 27. Ka ete nupatayeta Ekadash Mahabhataha Ita Balalana Goyam Tehi Purasadaha Ka ete nupatayeta Ekadash Mahabhataha Ita Balalana Subru Goyam Tehi Purasadaha Ka ete nupatayeta Ekadash Mahabhataha Ita Balalana Subru Goyam Tehi Purasadaha. Please chant.
Ka ete nupatayeta
Patayeta
Ekadasha Mahabhataha
Ekadash Mahabhataha
Lalana Subru
Lalana Subru
Goyam Tehi Purasaraha
Goyam Tehi Purasadaha
Kaite nupatayeta.
Kaite Nupatayeta Ekadasha Mahabhata Itavalana Subru Koyam Tehi Purasaraha. Right. Synonyms, please repeat. K, who? Ete, all these. Anupataha, followers. Ye, they who. Te, your. Ekadasha, 11. Mahabhataha, very powerful bodyguards. Etaha, all of these. Ma, also. Lalanaha, women. Subru, a beautiful eyed one. Kaha, who? Ayam, this. Te, your. Ahihi, the snake. Puraha, in front. Saraha, going. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. This is our hero, King Paranjana, speaking to the beautiful woman he has encountered. My dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Please repeat. My dear lotus-eyed. Who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women? Following the 10 servants. And who is the snake that is preceding you? Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The 10 strong servants, 5 working senses, and the 5 knowledge-gathering senses. All these 10 senses work under the aegis of the mind. The mind and the 10 senses combine to become 11 strong bodyguards. The hundreds of women under the jurisdiction of the senses are addressed here as Lalanaha. The mind works under the intelligence, and under the mind are the 10 senses. And under the 10 senses are innumerable desires to be fulfilled. That's the women, Lalanaha. All these, however, depend on the vital life force, which is here represented by the snake. As long as the vital life force is there, the mind works, and under the mind, the senses work, and the senses give rise to so many material desires. Actually, the living entity known as Puranjana is embarrassed by so much paraphernalia. Paraphernalia simply constitutes different sources of anxiety. But one who is surrendered under the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who leaves all business to Him is freed from such anxieties. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises a person who has taken to the materialistic way of life, which is never permanent but always temporary, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and leave aside all his so-called responsibilities in order to get free from all anxieties. Ta ete nupatayeta ekadhasya mahabhataha eta balalanaha subru koyam tehi purasaraha. My dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? Mukum Koroti Vacharam Hangam Lagayate Girim Sadkripa Tamaham Bande Sigurum Madinatarinu. So, as this narration given by Sri Narada Muni is proceeding, he has given a description of this women and the snake and the servants and the hundreds of women following, and it is all allegorical. It is not a historical account on the one hand, but it is an allegory meant to teach the King Pachini Bar about the position of the living entity and how he has become entangled by the material energy, by different coverings, not only by the covering of the body, but by the covering of the mind and the intelligence and the false ego. And then, so according to this analogy, there are 10 servants, and those servants represent the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, which everyone has under their quote command. But actually those things are under the command of the living entity only when he becomes their master by becoming fully engaged in the spiritual energy of the Lord. Then he is the master. Then he is yogi. A yogi is what? A master of the senses. This is all very clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita. But when one is not a yogi, then one becomes the servant of these servants of, of the mind and of the senses, the working senses, the knowledge acquiring senses. And these 10 senses, they are being followed by what's described as lalanaha, these hundreds of women who represent various material desires, which the senses present to one in order to be fulfilled. So this is the lamentable position of the living entity who is conditioned by the material energy and who has accepted a material body. So you could say, like it or not, here we are. We are all in this position. And as far as like it or not goes, we may like it because we're trying to satisfy the senses, thinking we'll get some pleasure, but actually it's like it or not. We don't like it because we become the servant of the mind and the senses, which are followed by their hundreds of desires. And then we become very busily engaged trying to satisfy these various desires on the platform of mental concoction. That is called, in the 5th canto, Mano Asati Dhavato Bihi. That when one identifies himself with the material energy, Dhavato Bahi, Bahi means external. We sing this every morning. Bahir Nisingho Ridda. The Lord Nisingha is everywhere. He's Bahi, he's everywhere outside, and Hridaye Nisingho, he's within the heart. So when Dhavato Bahi, when one thinks that he is a product of the material energy, then Manoratain Asati Dhavato Bahi. He becomes carried away on the chariot of the mind. Then there's that illustration in the Bhagavad Gita of the living entity seated on the chariot, and then the senses, the 5 senses, which are the 5 horses in the illustration. And the living entity is like asleep at the wheel, and he's not controlling the reins of the senses, and they're running away with him. So that is a disastrous position when one is riding in such a chariot. And that's called Manorata, Rata, like we have a yatra. A rata means a chariot or a cart. riding on this Manoratha, the chariot of the mind, but Davatobihi, we're caught up in the external energy. So that comes from a verse in the 5th canto that Harava Bhaktasya, Kato Mahadguna, Manoratenasati Davatobihi, that whatever supposedly good qualities a conditioned soul may have, they are robbed or taken away by the material energy because of being carried away on this Manoratha. So that's in contradistinction to one who is a devotee. Yasyasya bhakti bhagavati akinchana savarganais tatra samasute suraha. All the good qualities that are present in the demigods, like knowledge and religion, which the demigods have so many nice, good qualities. They're living in a very good atmosphere, and they have great opportunity for punya, but that's not always the case. But generally, they're very qualified, pious living entities to be on the heavenly planets. So all those good qualities that we see manifest in the persons of Savarganas Tata Samasate Suraha, of the Suras, they are become manifest in the person of a person who is a devotee of Krishna. Yasyasya Bhakti Bhagavati Akinchana. But Harava Bhaktasya, one who is not a bhakta, one who's a bhakta, not a devotee. Harava Bhaktasya, one who is not a devotee of Hari. But we want to become Hari Bhakta, the devotee of God. But one who's Harava Bhaktasya, not a devotee of God. Kato Mahadguna, no matter how Mahaguna, great qualities they may seem to have, like being very rich and very beautiful and having all good circumstances, like living in a very, very big house and driving the finest cars and eating the best food and all the things that the good qualities that everyone is striving for in material consciousness. Even has achieved that pinnacle by good karma in their previous life, they have achieved that great position in this life. Harava Bhaktasya, if there's not a devotee, then all that greatness is of no value. It's worthless. Bhagavatam is very strong in its language in many places. And so someone may take exception. But well, how can you say that someone who's like living the good life and has everything, that they're just completely worthless? Because that's what Bhagavatam says. I am not saying, I'm only repeating what Bhagavatam is. It is worthless. We are not required to pass judgment because Bhagavatam has delivered the truth to us. Harava Bhaktasya Kato Mahadguna. No matter how great it seems, Manovatenasati Davatobi. It is carried away. And this also is explained very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, where he's talking about the type of people that never surrendered unto him. Namam duskritinam mudha prapadyante naradamaha. So who never namam prapadyante, who never surrenders to Krishna? Duskritina, those who perform impious activities. Mudha, those who are foolish. And he goes on to list a couple more. Namam duskritinam prapadyante Maya parhutigyana, that those who take shelter of the material energy, in other words, those who are not devotees, those who are demons, Maya parhutigyana, jnana, whatever knowledge they have, like we live not 2 miles from the University of Arizona, and there are many jnanis, so-called jnanis, they're educated people, very learned. Maya parhutigyana, all their knowledge is stolen by illusion. because they don't have a clue who they are. They're thinking, that I am this body, I am the mind, I am the senses. I have so many desires I have to fulfill. I have so many plans to enjoy in this world. I'm going to get my PhD. I'm going to become a professor. I'm going to get a big job. So I have so many plans and so many arrangements are going to be there. It is a great hope. What does Krishna say? Maya yaparita jnana. That's all stolen by illusion, by Maya. Asuram bhavam ashritaha. Ashrita means to take shelter. It's like we take shelter of Krishna, right? A devotee. Mahatmanas tamam partha daivam prakritim ashritaha. That is a devotee, one who takes shelter of the spiritual potency of Krishna. But one who doesn't, asuram bhavam ashritaha. They take shelter of asura bhava, of being a demon. Not very flattering, is it? So who is that? That is us. We don't take to Krishna consciousness. But once we take to Krishna consciousness, then that is no longer applies to us. But what passes for greatness in the world, Mahaguna, the great qualities of all the great people of the world, they're just being carried away by the chariot of the mind. Srila Prabhupada pointedly teaches us that the dog is running on 4 legs. Is that glorious? Oh, look at that dog run. And I know in Florida they have these greyhound dog races. They torture these poor animals. And they gamble based on which dog will win. So the dog is running on 4 legs. And modern civilization, he says, is running on 4 wheels. This is a dog's race. And where are they going? Where's everyone going so quickly on those 4 wheels? Lita just mouthed the word nowhere. That was that song. He's a real nowhere man, living in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. The song by the Beatles. About the pointlessness of so-called civilized life. Doesn't have a point of view is the next verse. Knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like you and me? So that's the dog running civilization. And so what did the dogs do? All the dogs get together and they elect as their leader the biggest dog. Who's the biggest dog of all? And that passes for civilization. That is manola tenasati davatobahi. That's been helplessly carried away, the living entity asleep in the driver of the chariot, and the horse is running wild. It is guaranteed. Also, that's explained by Prahlad Maharaj. That the whole civilization is like the blind person who cannot see where to go. So he has to accept help from someone. Please lead me. But if the person leading him is also blind, that is called the blind leading the blind. And what happens? What is the destination? What is the result of the blind leading the blind? They miss the path and fall into the ditch. So it is a bit distracting that you're absorbed in your phone while we're speaking, and it is making noises.
That's not my phone.
Oh.
Sorry.
So please turn off your phones.
I have it on mute.
And in one temple in Houston, they have a enforced program that if during the Bhagavatam, during the lecture, if the phone goes off, then the offender has to pay $20, and it is not a joke. They have to pay. So, you know how attached we are to our $20. We don't want to give it away for nothing. So everyone has their phone off in the Houston temple, which is a 90% Indian congregation. They all have the latest phone. So they know. One sannyasi was telling me about this, and they enforce it strictly. You cannot leave the temple room before paying the fine. You cannot get your prasad. But here you will get your prasad. So that is the description of the modern civilization running on four wheels, the nowhere men, nowhere people, all busily engaged in nothingness and going nowhere. Very quickly they are going nowhere at very high speed. What did Prabhupada say? They're driving in their cars at 70 miles an hour. He said at neck break speed. We say at breakneck speed. He said at neck break speed. And Srila Prabhupada was not unfamiliar. You know, when he was in India doing business, he actually owned a car. I believe it was a Chevy. And his nephew, whose name was Tulsi Das, used it for a taxi business. The Prabhupada was not unfamiliar with the four wheels, even though he was in India in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. When the devotees Srila Prabhupada established the Krishna Balaram temple in Sri Vrindavan Dham in the early 1970s. He acquired that property in 1971 or something like that. The temple was finally opened in 1975. And at that time, the devotees who were living there in Vrindavan described that there was only one car in Vrindavan, in the whole town of Vrindavan. There was one car. Otherwise, bicycle, rickshaw. And if you're going to Mathura, you take the Tanga, which is a one-horse carriage. Now there are so many cars, so much traffic, so crowded. But it was more peaceful and idyllic. We were reading this morning about Srila Prabhupada living at Keshigat in the Bangsi Gopalji temple, beginning in 1957. And there were no cars. It was very peaceful, very quiet. And that corner of Vrindavan was especially a very quiet and serene neighborhood. And Prabhupada was engaged mostly in translating. He was writing back to Godhead magazine, and then he later began translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. His magnum opus, his life's work, most important work, the Bhagavad. And every day we are sitting here to hear and study from that Bhagavatam, or Bhagavat, as Prabhupada called it. And someone may complain, well, yesterday you didn't read from Bhagavat. You had that class on Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So who is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati? He's Bhagavat. There are two Bhagavats. There's the book Bhagavat, and there's the person Bhagavat. And the devotees are called the Bhagavats, or the Bhagavatas. And one who is a very great devotee is called a Maha Bhagavata. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he is Maha Bhagavat. So we are hearing from Bhagavat, and we are hearing about Maha Bhagavat. It is the same thing. It is not different. So there's no reason to feel any insufficiency or lack of transcendental experience in this regard. So there's a very nice verse spoken by Sri Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, in chapter 5, when Hiranyakashipu, 5-year-old Prahlad, comes to him. He's on the throne. He takes him on his lap. And so like one does with a child, pats him on the head. Oh, my dear boy, what did you learn in school today? Like sometimes we ask the girls, what did you learn from school today? And you know what Radha? Nothing. We're not learning anything at school. So anyway, Hiranyakashipu, who's in control of the entire universe, he asked his son, so what's the best thing you've learned from your teachers in school? And in this famous verse from the 5th canto, verse 5 of the 5th chapter of the 7th canto, Prahlad says, Tatsadu manye suryavarya dehinam sada samudvignam asadgrahat idvatmapatam grihamandakupan vanam gatoyam daryashrayeta. That verse is paraphrased by Srila Prabhupada in this purport. At the very end, he says, let me find it here. He says, the living entity known as Paranjana is embarrassed by so much paraphernalia. The working senses, the knowledge senses, the mind, the intelligence, the lalanaha, all these hundreds of women that represent material desires, and the living entity is burdened with these things. He's carrying this great burden, and it's a source of anxiety and embarrassment. But, Prabhupada says, one who is surrendered under the supreme personality of Godhead and who leaves all business to him is freed from such anxieties. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises a person who is taken to the materialistic way of life, which is never permanent, a sadgrahat, he calls it. That one who is embarrassed by this asadgrahat, this temporary position, to take shelter. Vanam gato yam dharya ashrayeta. Here's that word ashrita again. Dharyam ashrayeta. Hari ashraya. To take shelter of God. Vanam gato yad. One should go to the forest if he's by all these things, and there take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And further, Prabhupada elucidates in the translation, when it says Vanam means the forest, Vanam gato yam dharya ashrita, he said, more specifically, one should go to Vrindavan and there take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he says here, leave aside all his so-called responsibilities in order to get free from all anxieties. So all of our, quote, responsibilities cause us anxiety are our material desires that we are attempting to fulfill and all the complications of theirs. Like generally everyone wants to get married and have a family. So much burden and complication comes from that. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that one should give all this temporary foolishness up and go to Vrindavan and take shelter of Krishna. Right? Let's go to the airline ticket office and get our tickets to Vrindavan quickly and get out of here. Like the Animals said in a famous song in the 1960s, we gotta get out of this place. It's the last thing we ever do. So, how are we to understand this? Does that mean, oh, we should just walk away from everything? What it means is that we should adopt everything in Krishna's service. So a devotee can say, well, you know, I have given up everything. So I have no responsibilities now. Prabhu, can you sweep the floor? No, I cannot sweep the floor. Can you wash the pots? No, I cannot wash the pots. Can you go out and preach? No, I cannot do that. Can you rise early in the morning? No, I cannot do that. Can you chant your 16 rounds? No, I've given up all my responsibilities. That's not what that means. That means that we've given up the pursuit of sense gratification. We've given up that burden. But if you give up that burden, then you have to take up the other burden, the burden of spiritual life. That means what? That you have to rise from among the Lordy. Those who live in the temple, anyway, or those who live close to the temple, right? Damodar and I both live close to the temple. Actually, you live closer than me. You have to get up, and you have to properly bathe, and you have to dress nicely for Krishna. You have to chant your 16 rounds and do everything required. And you have to engage in service to Krishna because you've given up your sense gratification. So you're not going to do that anymore. Are you? Or are you going to give it up? Or are you just pretending? Oh, I'm a devotee. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, sense gratification, oh, sense gratification. Krishna, please fulfill my material desires. Give me everything I really want because I'm your devotee. And let me satisfy my senses because they are raging and out of control. No, that is not the prayer of the Hare Krishna mantra. By associating with the spiritual energy of the holy name, it means that we are associating with Daivan Prakashrita, the internal energy of Krishna. And what is that internal energy of Krishna? It's devotional service. So we're begging for Krishna to engage us in devotional service. And the chanting itself is engagement in devotional service. But who's going to sit there and chant Hare Krishna all day and all night and do nothing else? Not anyone that I know. There was one devotee who thought that because he had some disease, that he didn't have long to live. So he asked Prabhupada to give him Babaji initiation. And Prabhupada never gave Babaji initiation before that to anyone, and never after that either. So Prabhupada, please give me Babaji initiation. And Prabhupada said, all right, I will give you Babaji initiation, and then you have to just sit there in Mayapur and chant 24 hours a day. So the devotee took Babaji initiation. He was there in Mayapur chanting. For a very short time, he became very restless. And then he realized that, oh, this disease is not killing me after all. I'm just fine. I'm not going to die, at least not today. So then he left Mayapur and he left chanting and he was never heard from again. So why did Prabhupada do that? Why did he give him Babaji? To teach the rest of us not to become a fool like that. To think, oh yes, let me just sit and chant. And Bhaktisiddhanta had written one shloka, as a poem, where he said, Dushtamana tumi kishara Vaishnava. That you, Dushtamana, you rascal mind, tumi kishara Vaishnava. What kind of Vaishnava are you? He said, that you are doing bhajan in a solitary place, pretending that you are chanting as if you were Haridas Thakur, who chanted 172 rounds a day or whatever it was. They said, no, you're just a cheater, and actually you're meditating on sense gratification. And one of the aspects of that sense gratification is that you want everyone to say, oh, look, he's chanting in a solitary place. He is a great sadhu. But a great sadhu is chanting in a solitary place, absorbed in bhajan to Krishna. But your bhajan is illicit sex, and you're thinking of women and money, and you want adoration, profit, and distinction from everyone. People treated Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj like that. He was a great renounced sadhu. But people were always bothering him. So therefore, he went to live by the side of the Ganga where people go to pass stool. That area was like the sewer, the latrine. And there he had his bhajan kutir. And it didn't smell good there in that place. And still people would come there to bother him because he's a great sadhu. So they want to get some respect or adoration or blessings from him because he's a great sadhu. So one big zamindar, he came there. He said, "Oh, you are my Guru Maharaj. You are such a great devotee. I will do anything you say." Because that is the duty of the disciple, to follow the order of the spiritual master, right? To surrender to and follow the order of the spiritual master. Anything you say, Guru Maharaj. And he was a very rich man, big zamindar, big landlord, holding, had so many villages and houses, and everyone's paying rent and giving the agriculture produce coming from those lands. He's rich. He's got it made in the shade. He's doing great. So Babaji Maharaj told him, all right. Babaji Maharaj was no fool. He knew when someone was fake. Actually, pretty much he thought that everyone was fake. He told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, his disciple, that all these sadhus, they are all fake. They're all rascals. They're not sadhus. These Navadvip sadhus, they're simply cheating. So he told the zamindar, all right, if I am your guru, you're my disciple, then you give up all your possessions and you come and live with me here in the latrine, in the stinky place, and chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day. Oh, you have to excuse me, Guru Maharaj. Right now I have an appointment. I have to go. I cannot stay. He was never heard from or seen again by Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So who exposed him? And then when Babaji Maharaj finally left his body, he passed away. There were different sadhus and organizations. They wanted to claim to take his body and build a samadhi at their temple for him, because that would be very good for business. Yes, we have the samadhi of Babaji Maharaj here. Please come, offer a bhikshu, give a donation, to put money in the donation box. But his only disciple was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So there was a big commotion. They were all wanting to claim the body of Maharaj. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came there and said, none of you are qualified to touch the body of Guru Maharaj. He said, first of all, I'm his only disciple, so I will take him. But if someone else thinks they have a right to claim his body and take it, then let someone who has not touched a woman, because the sadhus are supposed to be celibate and renounced, who has not touched a woman in the last year, come forth and claim his body. And there was a police officer present, because there was a big commotion and he wanted to settle the affair. And so the police officer said to Bhaktisiddhanta, well, how will you know if they are truthful or not when they claim they haven't been with a woman? And he said, I will take their word. And he said that, and no one came forward. And he said, let no one who has not touched a woman in the last month come forward and take Guru Maharaj's body. Again, no one moved a muscle. The police officer raised his eyebrows. Oh, this is very interesting. And he said, let someone who has not been with a woman in the last week come forward. No one moved a muscle. And then finally, in the last 24 hours, and claimed Guru Maharaj's body. And then they all turned and walked away. They turned their backs and walked away. And the police officer, he said, my dear Bhaktisiddhanta, you are the real sadhu. Exposed them all as cheaters. A wonderful pastime. Was that pastime mentioned in yesterday's class?
A little bit.
Yeah. So he was celibate his whole life. He was a Nitya Brahmachari, Naishtika Brahmachari, it's called technically. So that is the real renounced position of a devotee. So when Babaji Maharaj asked the Zamadar to stay and give up everything and chant Hare Krishna with him, he had to go. He had an appointment. And when all these so-called sadhus wanted to claim the body of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, then they all turned away when they were challenged by a real devotee, by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So therefore, he had been instructed by Gaurkishore about all these cheaters, and therefore he wrote that shloka, Dushtamana, Tumikishera Vaishnava. You are just a fake, that you want adoration and distinction from others, as if you're a great devotee chanting in a solitary place, but really your meditation is something completely different. Bhakti Vinod referred to that as Kali Chela. He is wearing the neck beads and the tilak, but actually he's a disciple of Kali, Kali Chela, because he wants all sense gratification in the name of spiritual life. So when Prahlad Maharaj says one has to give up this embarrassing situation of temporary grihastha life and take shelter of Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan, he means that one has to chant and give up his attachment to sense gratification. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed that to pursue Krishna consciousness, it runs on two tracks, just like the train. A train, of course, now they have monorails that one track, but in the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they didn't have those. So the train ran on two tracks. And those two tracks are the spiritual side of life, one's hearing and chanting, and then the other track is one's bodily existence. You have to eat, you have to clean, you have to dress, you have to perform your normal bodily engagements, and you have to have some means of livelihood, etc. So I've written something here. Leaving aside responsibilities means not to become a slacker, but to fully engage oneself in devotional activities, not only hearing and chanting, but also to do some practical and meaningful work to assist the Krishna consciousness movement, whether it be preaching, cleaning, managing, cooking, working, collecting, etc. There are unlimited ways to serve. And as an aside, there are unlimited things that need to be done around the temple, for example. Everyone has to chant their rounds. Everyone has to hear and read. And everyone has to contribute their energy in practical ways as well, just like the train has two tracks, as described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the spiritual side of life, the hearing and chanting, and the material side, maintaining the body, taking care of business. So in the same way, there's the hearing and then there's the seva side, of the practical side of devotional service. And we all have to be engaged in both of those ways. So that is a plea for everyone to carry their weight in the Krishna consciousness movement. Take some service. Take it upon yourself. Don't leave it for someone else. Just like I became a little perturbed yesterday when I saw that someone had thrown what looked to be several pounds of sesame seeds into one of the sinks. There's a back sink wash area there with the 3 sinks and the big plastic sink. One of the small steel sinks was filled with sesame seeds. So I don't know who put the sesame seeds there. Maybe someone thinking they would all go down the drain and go away. Well, there's a trash can very close by and a compost, and you put the sesame seeds down the drain, and pretty soon you got a clogged thing, and then you got to call the plumbers, and they, a whole thing costs lots of money. The last time plumbers to clean out our line, It was $1,700. So, anyway, I cleaned those sesame seeds out of there while I was cursing and threw them away, thinking, what were they thinking? Don't throw the garbage in the sink. Throw it in the trash. But fortunately, even though I was not in a good mood, Krishna to clean that sink. There was a good side of that, but I better not find more sesame seeds back there. I have to start taking names. So it is the duty of all the devotees to maintain their hearing and chanting, their Krishna conscious spiritual side, and to also contribute to Prabhupada's mission of the Krishna conscious movement, which mission is meant for the benefit of the whole world. But by engaging in that mission, then we are benefited. And this was told to Srila Prabhupada by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in a letter that he received from him right before he passed away, within a couple of weeks of him passing away. He wrote to Prabhupada that you preach this Krishna consciousness in English to people of the world who are not familiar with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And he said, this will do great good to your audience, but it will also do great good to you. So it's the perfect engagement because it's good for everybody and it's good for you. By taking part, you get the benefit of doing that service. You get that credit from Krishna. And what did Prabhupada say about that? What is the meaning of our life? What is the goal of the devotees in the Krishna conscious movement? We want a piece of paper from Krishna that says, this man has rendered me some service. So you die, you give up your body, and then you're armed with this piece of paper. Who are you trying to get into the spiritual world? What do you want here? Oh, I have a piece of paper from Krishna that says, this man has rendered me some service. Oh, all right, come on. You come in. You will not be disturbing anyone because you have a piece of paper from Krishna that says you have rendered some service. So that's all we aspire for, to please Krishna. And then Prabhupada says, give up all other business, let Krishna take that. And you just surrender and serve. And then your life will become. And like Damodar was telling us yesterday, him and Divya, he was saying, we just want to go back to Godhead. So that's all. We just want to serve with every ounce of our strength in this life and then let Krishna take us. Naiti mameti sarjana. And then if you know Krishna become self-realized by chanting Hare Krishna and giving your life to Krishna, then you will not take another birth again. That's certified by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So everyone get your paper, get it signed by Krishna, and that will give you free passage beyond all the complexities of Maya and back home, back to Godhead. All right, stop here. Questions, comments, realizations? Yes.
I was listening to Chaitanya Bhagavat this morning, and there was some talk about some sahajas, and then you mentioned like fakers in your lecture today. And so this morning I was just thinking, like, is there any hope for people, that are fakers or sahajas, that they can have like a true realization and actually become sincere, or is that kind of a hopeless situation?
Well, it depends on the person and their motivation. But, there's a story of the thief. There was a group of devotees on pilgrimage was a thief. So they got to one dharamshala in the holy place, and they're staying for the night. So everyone takes rest, and they all have their, their packs and their baggage and things. And the thief, he was very restless. He's a thief. He's thinking, this is a great time to go through everyone's stuff and steal the money and whatever, steal the passport or whatever's in there. He's thinking this way. But he restrained himself because he realized, I'm on pilgrimage. I'm in the holy place. So in the morning, everyone woke up and they found in different places from where they put it and everything was messed up. Like, what happened? What happened? And then finally the thief woke up. He said, it was me. I'm sorry. I am a thief. I wanted to steal everything from everyone. But because I realized I'm on pilgrimage in the holy place, I restrained myself. But because I'm a thief, I still had to do something, so I messed everything up. And so they forgave him. And then he made advancement. And he gave up his thieving ways. Was that song by Santana? You got to change your evil ways, baby. So we have to change our evil ways by engaging in Krishna consciousness. And then we will no longer put our hands in everyone else's bags to get their stuff or even mess it up. We will become purified and become good devotees. So yeah, the possibility is there. Or one can simply remain a rascal and continue to cheat, and we'll get the result of that. All right, anyone else? Yes, Parameshwar. No, that's for the recording.
Oh, yeah. Just on that note, I remember Prabhupada saying that these people in Vrindavan doing that they make benefit in their next life. They become hogs and dogs, animal bodies. They suffer for one life, and then they go back home to Godhead.
Yes.
And also, just I don't know if he did this on purpose, but in that same Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj explaining pursuing that subtle sense gratification, look how great I am, I just chant. He compared that to the stool of a hog, because the stool of a hog is material, and the desire for subtle sense gratification is also material. So he compared that to the stool of a hog. And you read the stool of a hog, you just don't want to participate with that kind of program. I don't know. It's just
Driven by a hog farm in places like Kansas and ever, and it stinks out on the highway. You know there's a hog farm nearby. That's a stinky stool. Yes. Yes. No.
Hare Krishna, thank you for class, Prabhu. So I don't know, maybe I'm like a notoriously optimistic kind of progressive rascal. So I'm just meditating throughout class on the nuance. Yeah, I'm a relativist, I guess. For example, I was thinking actually of the plumbers that you referred to who came to help fix the clogged sink. And then I'm thinking of all of the individuals along my personal spiritual path, those I know, who have helped devotees make advancement, who have rendered some service. Maybe they got Lakshmi for it, maybe not, knowingly or unknowingly. People who have all this different karma, samskar. I'm just thinking of the fact that so many people are not in a position to either hear God's name or be receptive to it due to so many things outside of their conscious control. So I was just wondering, just earlier, the notion of those who do not have Bhagavatam, who do not have Krishna explicitly in their lives as being demoniac. I'm just thinking of kind of what your thoughts are on the nuance and people being where they're at in their journey and that being part of the arrangement too.
Well, generally speaking, people are not serving Krishna.
Mhm.
It's the mission of the conditioned souls. So it's not, oh, they're just innocent. No. We put ourselves in this position. We've gotten here by the result of our activities. But Krishna consciousness is an opportunity to correct that and to give it up. And mostly we are preaching to the non-devotee class, asuram bapamashvitaha, those who are convinced that sense gratification is the goal of life. So they're not just innocent. None of us are innocent. We all have skeletons in our closet.
Of course.
And that is why we're here in the material world. Because we have Krishna Bahirmukha, we have turned our face away from God. No, thank you. I don't want to serve God. I want to serve my senses. So that means that is what demoniac is. There is no God. They make philosophies like that. There is no God. That is what for the primitive people. Now we are modern scientific people. This whole thing of God is just fantasy and mythology, and they say this and say that. That is demoniac. But the Krishna conscious movement is meant to take the demons and turn them into devotees, which is what Prabhupada has done to us. We have all been recruited, for the most part, from the demon class. But we're not pursuing that demon life anymore. We've been trained by Prabhupada and his devotees to no longer do that. So this is the great opportunity we have. So that's all I'm going to say now because we're over time.
Oh, okay. A second.
And we'll have class again tomorrow to discuss all these wonderful things. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.